Alright guys, welcome back. So we're going to be talking about generating wealth. How is wealth generated in the United States? Or how do you generate wealth in general? About 90% of the, roughly around 90% of the world population is kind of poor. So what did they do wrong and how do you generate wealth? Well, there's a few things that generate wealth that they will probably not teach you in school, but they've taught us. They taught us these things in school, but they did not. How do you say it? They didn't. They didn't tell you, oh, this is how. This is how you generate wealth. They basically gives us history. They give us history, and then you can put two and two together, and then you'll see how wealth is generated. Now, understanding how wealth is generated does not make you rich. And even if you try to generate wealth in this way, there's a chance that you might die or get arrested. Okay, so in order to understand how to generate wealth, real wealth, there's what people tell you, what billionaires tell you how to generate wealth, which is usually a lie. The biggest lie is that you need to work hard to generate wealth. That's a lie. The other lie that they tell you is to invest in the stock market. That's another lie. Also, what else have I heard that's a lie? Persistence, that's a lie. There's also another lie that they said is that you need to be a problem solver. You need to find a problem or a service and solve that problem and you'll be rich. That's another lie. So through history, we see how wealth is created, and even in modern history and in modern examples, you see how wealth is created. Now, no one thinks that the drug cartels are poor. No one in their right mind thinks that a drug cartel is poor. And how are they getting away with making trillions of dollars a year when they don't have an army, they don't have a police force, they don't have a country? How is it that they're exporting so much drugs into the United States and all over the world? I've even heard that they've been exporting drugs to Australia and Europe. So how does a cartel making trillions of dollars a year, how do they generate wealth? They're not doing it through hard work, right? So that's a modern day example of how to generate wealth. Now, in order for you to understand how wealth is created or generated, you need to know two things. Two things will help you realize how wealth is created. One thing you need to know is history. History of a nation. You need to learn the history of a nation, and you also need to know a little bit of physics. If you know a little bit of physics and you know a little bit of history of a nation, any nation, it doesn't matter what nation it is. Actually, I'm going to use the United States as the history of the United States and how the United States generated wealth. The reason why I say generate is that's the physics of it. You cannot produce energy without generating electricity. Now, most of our electricity comes from the river or from a dam. And the thing that is actually doing the work is the river, nature. Nature is providing the push and pull And a long time ago, we harnessed the energy of the river or the ocean or of nature, and they created generators. Now, if you don't harness the power of nature, you don't have electricity. But most people, when you need to generate electricity or power or a current, something has to work. Now, you can have people generate electricity manually by like running or something like that, but there's no more powerful force than the running river current that has so much power behind it. You could literally generate enough electricity to power a big chunk of the world. Now, since we're using more and more energy every year, we need to harness more things from Earth. So one is nuclear power, the other one is wind energy. But the thing that I'm trying to say is current is like currency, and wealth is like wattage. So you need to generate electricity. You also need to generate wealth. So a person can sit in a room doing nothing for 40 hours and not generate anything because they're not moving. Now, a person can move, right, and not generate any money. And another person can move with a camera in front of them and they will be able to generate wealth. This is partially why I'm making these videos. I'm not just doing this for my own good, I'm trying to generate wealth. And there's nothing more nothing that can generate more is to work, make a video of it, and have that video go viral, and that video generates wealth for you. Now, I can talk all day about shit, and I'm just making more and more videos, and I put them out there. If I don't get any views, it doesn't matter. Maybe one day I get noticed, and now I have all those videos generating income. So I'm working. Even though I'm talking right now, I'm actually working and trying to harness these videos right here that I'm making. So next we move on to United States history. How do you generate wealth through knowing history? Alright, so United States history starts in Great Britain around the 16 or 1500s. People were sick of being controlled by taxes and immigration policies and tyranny and all kinds of other shit, and religious control. So people said, you know what, we're sick of this shit. We don't want to be taxed for shit. We just want I'm gonna fucking sneeze. Alright, we don't want to be taxed by the king. The king's imposing taxes, and we don't want that shit. Plus, they don't let foreigners come into Great Britain. Before it was like open borders, but now I guess what happened in 15 or 1600s, they tightened up on border immigration. So this happened in the 1500s, and there was a lot of tyranny and all that shit, and the British military was going against the people, and life was just a big pile of shit, kind of how it is right now in the United States. So the people said the hell with it, let's get the hell out of here, let's get on a boat. So thousands of people sold their shit, sold their houses, sold what little they had, got on a ship, and they sailed to the Americas. They didn't know what the fuck they were gonna find, but they were there. They brought their gold, they brought their silver, they brought their. Some people brought pigs, some people brought all their wealth, and they moved. There was an exodus. There was an exodus from Great Britain to the Americas, and those were the first pilgrims that came to America. So, how did they generate wealth when they got here? There was no currency. America was a free land. There, you didn't have to pay taxes. You didn't have to. You didn't have to pay for property taxes. You can just live off the land, and that's basically it. There was a few thousand people here. They all stuck together, and they said, you know what, we're gonna live. And then, for their surprise, they realized that there was actually Native Americans living here. Well, they already been colonized by the Spaniards for a long time. So they spoke, I think some of them spoke some sort of Spanish or whatever native language that they had. And they got along with the Native Americans at first. The first pilgrims got along with the Native Americans. Now what happened was that the government from Britain followed the pilgrims, and since the government of Great Britain has more money than the damn pilgrims, they send ships over here to establish governments in the United States. And that's where shit was starting to hit the fan, because you had new American pilgrims and you had the old British military. The military just does whatever the fuck the king tells them to do. So the military came, the police or whatever they had in the 1600s, to follow the pilgrims and to tax them, and said, hey man, you can't just go to America and not pay taxes. You need to pay taxes still. So people said, the hell with the fuck with Great Britain, dude. Like, we left Great Britain so we could start our own fucking country. Now fast forward about 100 or 200 years in 1776, when there's a war going on, and the United States is already has 13 colonies, and they basically have a little tiny government, and they have a little army, and they have all this other shit, and they say, look man, let's write this Declaration of Independence, and let's leave examples to the people of why we fucking left we left Great Britain. The fucking government, it's all in the Declaration of Independence. If you read it, it tells you the examples of what the government was doing, or the king or the monarch or the whatever he was doing to the people. They were charging the people taxes that they couldn't pay, and they were charging the people taxes without their consent. So they were passing these laws that said, oh, you have to pay 10% tax for this, 5% tax for that, 10 for this, 10 for that, 10 to this, that, and this. So people were saying, fuck that shit, we don't want to pay so much damn taxes, and we never voted on this crap. So there was no democracy in Great Britain. It was just a monarchy. It was the king says, look, you have to pay taxes and shit like that. And people said, we're fucking done with Great Britain. Fuck this shitty ass country. You can keep your fucking shitty buildings and your parliament and all that crap. We're gonna go to America. So that's what the first Americans did, and a lot of them were white. Well, most of them were white, but they were not racist. Some of them were not racist. But this is a kind of like spewing in between two different subjects. But what we're trying to realize is how do you generate wealth, and how does history tell you to generate wealth? Number one is that governments, they create wealth through their military. They get people to pay taxes. They use those taxes to militarize the people and get people to work for them and turn against their own people. So, first thing you got to do is charge the people taxes. When a person pays taxes, they already lost a war. When you choose to pay taxes, when you agree to pay taxes, you're basically giving power to a government. So people were paying taxes, right? Some people were against it, but some people say, you know what, look, it's just $2. It's just $2 a person. Like, I ain't gonna fucking die. But then like 100 years pass, now it's $100 a person. Just how it is right now. Some people, let's say you make $30,000 a year, you're gonna be paying about $5,000 a year in taxes. That's a lot of money. So that's $5,000 that you're giving the government from your labor. So what does the government do? Government establishes a police department so that they can ticket you when they create a law that says, okay, it's illegal for you to cross this painted line. If you cross this painted line at a certain time, we can ticket you $600. If you cross this colored light at a certain time, we can charge you $1,000. Plus, you have to take a course, and you have to pay us another $500 for the course. So you give the money to the government, and they militarize themselves, pay their police very good to not quit their job, because some police make up to $120,000 a year. Now, they don't give a shit if they're giving people tickets, but that's not good on the brain. That's not good on the brain if you're a parasite to humanity. So how do you generate wealth? Number one, you extort labor from someone. So the government's not doing any work to get taxes. The initial work is they passed a law that was bullshit, and they said you have to pay a certain amount of taxes, and that's what the government did. And people agreed like idiots because they're weak. They're afraid because the police is going to come to your door and shoot and kill you, or take all your property if you don't pay the taxes, which is also bullshit. So everybody pays taxes. So that's how you generate wealth. You extort someone for their labor. And so how did people that don't work for the government create wealth? Now in around 1850, the United States started to turn to shit. And people were done with the United States. So they moved to Mexico, where the land was free and there was no laws and you could do whatever the fuck you wanted to. And the government wasn't charging you taxes. You could build a house. You don't have to get no fucking building codes. You don't have to get no permits. You just build your own fucking house. You could chop off the wood from trees and stuff like that and build a home. So people moved to California and all those other places that was part of Mexico in the 1850s. This is when the United States started to become just like Great Britain. So what ended up happening was the United States said, all right, then we're just going to, instead of losing people to Mexico, we're just going to steal the land from Mexico. So they created a false war, a war between Mexico for some stupid shit, and they started killing the crap out of the Mexicans. And I don't even know what the fuck the fight was about, but the United States ended up with California, Texas, and almost half of the United States. So the United States generated a lot of wealth through military again. So you see how a government, like a government that is militarized and takes over a whole country, that's how you generate wealth. It just got all this with a fight that they fought for 10 years. They got this whole country, and they got all the resources of the country, and then they started to sell the property to people. And the thing about it is that the United States beat Mexico, the Mexican army, but the people themselves, the civilians, they stayed in the United States. So they needed to be naturalized. They needed to become American citizens. So they allowed the people to keep their property, and they said, look, this used to be Mexico, now it's the United States. You have to pay taxes now. Now the Mexicans, they didn't use dollars because they used to barter. They used to trade. So when they were not able to pay taxes on their own property because they didn't have US dollars, the United States confiscated their property, even though their property was built by them in a time where it was owned by them. The land was owned by them, the materials were owned by them, and basically that shit was stolen through laws. So that's another way to generate wealth, is to steal from people. Now so how did normal Americans generate wealth? Well, once they were in California in 1860, they discovered that there was gold in California, and that started the gold rush. Now the people in California had the first home advantage, so they started mining for gold, and a lot of people made their money from gold because gold was money. Gold was US money. So the US would buy their gold, and now they had US dollars. So the normal people would just go to a mountain and get money mining for gold, and thousands of people try to get gold. Some people went rich and some people went poor. Now, how else did they gather wealth? Well, in the 1850s, around there, the big currency of the day, or the best thing to trade, was cowhide or some sort of bovine hide or some sort of animal hide. That was basically money because it was in large demand. So what people would do is they would kill the buffalo, the cows, and all this stuff, and they would take out their hides, and every hide is like equivalent to thousands of dollars. So they almost people just went out and killed the buffalo, and they took all the hides, and that's how they generated wealth, through stealing. Again, taking. So they took the gold, they took the bovine, and then they took then they noticed that people had a lot of money, people needed homes, and people needed those shits built. So what did people do is they got the money and they bought land from the government, and the land was cheap back then. So they would buy forests, and they would chop down the trees, and they would make lumber, and they would make houses with the lumber, They would sell the lumber. But all the trees were free, but they had to buy the land first. So now the economy is starting to develop. The U.S. economy is starting to develop in the 1860s, starting with the gold rush. So that's basically it. A lot of people got rich off of gold, buying land very cheap, farmland, and pillaging the rainforest and killing a bunch of bovine, and probably fishing the ocean, depleting the ocean of its fish, and farming and stuff like that. So that's how you generate wealth. So skip to 2021. We don't have a gold rush. We don't have cheap land. Everything has been claimed already in the United States and in the world. So there's no land to claim. There's no gold to find. And even if there was gold to find, the United States made a law where you have to pay for mineral rights in order for you to own minerals, because of the whole gold rush thing. You can't pillage the rainforest because it's an environmental problem. So you can't really generate wealth. So unless you want to start a war with a country and take it over and steal all its resources, you're not going to be rich. So wars are out of the picture for average people because they don't have a military. Unless all the militaries in the world turn on their governments, then those militaries are going to have power. But the people are never going to have power. People, the average person working at a store, the working class, those people never had power in their life. The only people that had power were the people that ruled the armies. Those are the people that had power and money. And that's it. That's how you generate wealth.